What's more unsettling than discovering lipstick on your husband's collar? Seeing it on his credit card statement. I confided in my therapist about this unsettling find the day after uncovering the truth. Despite her professional poker face, I noticed a brief flash of surprise in her expression. Even experts can be taken aback by a betrayed woman's composed response to deception without resorting to destroying everything in her path. Sharing my tale as Naomi feels oddly unfamiliar still. Just 3 months ago, I was a successful business owner in what I believed to be a happy marriage. After spending 15 years with Eric, who appeared to support my career growth and celebrate my achievements, it became apparent that success can provoke certain men. The seed of doubt was planted when our shared American Express account flashed a concerning notification. I noticed a $412 charge on my credit card statement from La Petite Maison, a cozy French restaurant on the other side of town. Eric and I had only been there once, exactly 3 years ago for our anniversary. What made it stand out was the date of the charge. It was a Tuesday when he was supposedly away at a sales conference in Phoenix. A sense of unease gripped me. Trusting my instincts honed in the business world, I felt that something was amiss in my marriage. Instead of immediately confronting him, I decided to take a more strategic approach. Opting for research over emotional outbursts, I enlisted the help of a digital forensic specialist as a private investigator. This expert, though expensive, proved to be invaluable. Within a week, I had gathered. Everything pointed to a betrayal by my husband, Eric, the woman named Alexis Bennett, who is 28 years old, as opposed to my 42. She works as a marketing coordinator at a downtown firm, and the numerous text messages exchanged between them left me feeling physically ill. It was not just the intimate nature of their conversations that bothered me, but also how they portrayed me to her. My wife, preoccupied with her career, had drifted apart from me, our interactions becoming few and far between. While Natalie focused on business matters even in our personal life, I felt emotionally disconnected. Despite the complications that leaving would bring, I admitted to myself that you were the one I truly desired. Each message read like a sharp knife, cutting deep with precise and painful details. To add insult to injury, a private investigator had discovered evidence of 7 supposed business trips that were actually trysts with Alexis over the past year. Detailed receipts from dinners, hotel charges, and even a trip to Napa, which she claimed was for a sales conference, were all meticulously documented. That fateful night, as Eric returned home late as usual, he greeted me with a casual kiss on the cheek and inquired about my day with feigned interest. Nonchalantly, he mentioned potential upcoming travel for client meetings next month. Putting on a facade, I forced a smile and assured him that I had prepared his. As he scrolled through his phone below the table, seeming to think I hadn't noticed, we'd enjoyed our favorite dinner together. With a quiet demeanor, he eventually remarked, "You seem quiet tonight." I smiled, replying finally. When the silence began to linger, I lifted my gaze from my plate and studied his familiar face. The same face I had woken up to for 15 years, now appearing somewhat distant. "Just pondering a potential new hire," I explained. "Someone who could really shake things up at the company." "That's my girl," he remarked with a condescending smile that I suddenly found irksome. "Always thinking about the business." Nodding, I took a sip of wine, letting the plan materialize in my thoughts. Although Eric wasn't entirely mistaken, business was often on my mind. In the realm of business, one didn't merely react emotionally when faced with a threat. Instead, strategizing, leveraging strengths, and transforming vulnerability into opportunity were key. "Actually," I said, placing my glass down with purposeful precision, "I believe this could be my most brilliant staffing decision yet." I was no longer paying attention, as he had already immersed himself in his phone, most likely exchanging messages with her. That evening, while he dozed off next to me, I took out my laptop and accessed Alexis Bennett's resume and online profiles. She was a young and driven individual, possessing suitable experience without necessitating a high salary. Despite being currently employed, her LinkedIn activity indicated a discreet openness to new opportunities. This was exactly what I needed. By the time morning arrived, I had crafted a job listing tailored perfectly for her, position of senior marketing strategist at my consulting firm. It represented a significant advancement from her current job, offering a salary and benefits that would be hard to turn down. The brilliance of it all lay in the fact that she was completely unaware, just as she was oblivious to my identity. Eric had always maintained a strict boundary between my professional life and his personal connections. He had never set foot in my workplace, and in his social circles, I was simply known as Eric's wife, who runs a business downtown. He had never showcased our relationship on his meticulously managed social media accounts. As I concluded, As my laptop shut down and I observed the sunrise casting its light on our bedroom wall, a feeling emerged within me that I had not experienced since the discovery of the affair. Empowerment. The equilibrium was on the verge of being restored. "Why are you awake so early?" Eric murmured from his side of the bed. I turned to him, offering the most genuine smile I could muster, just ensuring that everything is set in motion for what lies ahead. The hiring process progressed swiftly. I ensured that I stayed behind the scenes, allowing my HR director to handle the initial screenings. Alexa's application landed in our inbox shortly after the job was posted, exuding enthusiasm in her cover letter. Her qualifications were undeniably impressive. Despite Eric's shortcomings, it seemed like he had an eye for hiring competent professionals. I personally scrutinized her application materials, hoping to find any indication that she might recognize my name or establish a connection. Yet, there was nothing. Eric had excelled in downplaying my presence in his life. In her perspective, I likely existed as nothing more than a distant figure, the inconvenient wife who would eventually be. The first time I laid eyes on her in person was during the final interview. I watched from behind the one-way glass of our conference room as my executive team conducted the formal questioning. My heart raced so loudly, I was convinced everyone could hear it. She exuded beauty, younger and more elegant than me, with a confident energy that spoke of a sheltered life. Her dark hair was styled in a sophisticated bob, and her designer clothes hinted at a lavish lifestyle. As she eloquently fielded questions on marketing strategies and campaign metrics, I scrutinized her for any hint of deception or manipulation. Surprisingly, what I found was genuine intelligence and ambition shining in her eyes. Despite a twinge of sympathy, she seemed to possess the qualities we required for the Anderson account. "She's the perfect fit for us," my VP of operations remarked later. "When can she join us?" I wasted no time in instructing. "Send the offer today. I want her to start next week." The day Alexis accepted our offer, Eric arrived home with a bouquet of flowers. It was an ordinary Tuesday with no special occasion, but my stomach twisted in knots as I received a bouquet unexpectedly. "What's this for?" I asked, feigning gratitude. "Can't a man just appreciate his wife?" he replied, kissing my cheek and his hand resting on my waist. I couldn't help but wonder if he had touched Alexis the same way earlier that day. Curiosity got the best of me, and while he was in the shower, I checked his phone. Text to Alexis postponing their plans and citing family obligations he couldn't get out of. The family obligation was his cousin's wedding, an event he initially tried to skip until I insisted we go together. Now he was using me as a cover while trying to make me feel guilty with flowers. The next morning, I gifted the bouquet to our housekeeper. Alexis' first day at our company was a lesson in self-restraint for me. I stayed in my office until noon, busy with reports and mentally preparing for the encounter. When I finally joined the orientation lunch, I greeted each new hire with a handshake, introducing myself as Naomi Bennett, the founder of Bennett Consulting. When I first met Alexis, the senior marketing strategist, there was no hint of recognition in her eyes, only professional enthusiasm and a hint of intimidation upon meeting the CEO. She greeted me with a firm handshake and expressed her excitement about joining the team. "I have high expectations for you," I responded, maintaining a welcoming demeanor. In the following weeks, I observed Alexis closely, keeping her engaged in important projects that required frequent collaboration with me. I entrusted her with leading our most significant client presentation, ensuring she had to put in extra hours at the office. Despite her occasional need to cancel personal plans, I reassured her that dedication was highly valued at our company. I couldn't help but wonder if her sudden unavailability was causing frustration for Eric. To subtly hint at my personal life, I occasionally mentioned my husband in passing during our interactions, without directly stating his name. For example, I would casually reference events I attended with my husband and I. "Restaurant opening last month?" Or "My husband's company uses the breaking point, that same vendor the whole time." I was watching her checking her phone when she thought no one was looking, watching her expression fall slightly when she had to cancel another evening plan, watching her try to maintain professional composure while her personal life was being systematically disrupted. During this period, Eric's behavior shifted too. More late nights at the office, more irritability at home, more transparent lies about his whereabouts. I played my part perfectly, the oblivious work-obsessed wife who never questioned his absences because she was too preoccupied with her own career. The breaking point came during lunch too. I'd assigned Alexis to a client in Phoenix, a 3-day trip that coincidentally overlapped with Eric's supposed sales conference in the same city. I knew from my continued surveillance that they had planned to meet there, their first opportunity for a rendezvous in weeks. I also knew that. I had been complaining about me constantly in his text to her. She's completely cold these days. All she cares about is, the night before that damn company, I'm starting to think about how to end things with minimal financial damage. The night before Alexis was scheduled to leave for Phoenix, I called her into my office. I need to make a change to tomorrow's plans, I said calmly. Of course, she replied, poised and professional as always. What do you need? I've decided to attend the Phoenix meeting myself. You'll stay here and handle the Miller presentation instead. I watched the careful control in her expression, the slight widening of her eyes, the quick calculation happening behind them. But I prepared everything for Phoenix, she said carefully. The Miller presentation would require significant. I have complete confidence in your ability to adapt, I interrupted smoothly. That's why we hired you, Alexis. Flexibility is essential in our industry. The flash of frustration in her eyes was quickly masked. As she exited my office, I observed her reaching for her phone, likely to message Eric regarding the change in plans. I found myself intrigued by the potential excuses he might conjure to back out of his own trip. It wasn't long before the answers surfaced that evening during dinner when he casually mentioned, unfortunately, the Phoenix conference has been rescheduled. Looks like I won't be going after all. I sipped my wine and offered a sympathetic nod, acknowledging his disappointment. What a pity. I know you were eagerly anticipating it. Amused, he chuckled at the notion of looking forward to a business conference. Well, I remarked, you did seem quite enthusiastic about the trip. His gaze shifted away as he replied, just eager to seal the Henderson account. With a light tone, I remarked, quite a coincidence. I'm actually headed to Phoenix myself tomorrow, filling in for one of my new marketing strategists at a client meeting. His fork hovered midair as he processed this information. You are. I confirmed with a nod, explaining the sudden change in plans due to the unpredictable nature of business. That night, I monitored his text from a distance, gathering insights. The timing of the bathroom issue couldn't have been worse. Dave's now heading to Phoenix, so I have to cancel our plans entirely. Everything is becoming increasingly complicated. After expressing her disappointment for the third time, I canceled, and added that she's starting to feel like she's not a priority to me. As I looked at my reflection in the mirror, I noticed the cracks starting to appear. Despite giving my all to this marriage, I have been treated as if I don't matter. It's time to move on to the next phase of my plan. Quiet women are often underestimated. Our silence is mistaken for weakness, our patience for passivity, and our planning for procrastination. But people's first mistake is underestimating our abilities. The second mistake is assuming we don't notice everything. I've been observing Eric for 15 years, picking up on his cues, patterns, and the changes in his tone when he lies. I even know his passwords because he uses the same ones everywhere. Combination of his mother's maiden name and our anniversary date. Ironically, he used our wedding date to hide his unfaithfulness. But more importantly, I've been noticing. During her 2 months with my company, she displayed talent, drive, hint of insecurity beneath a polished exterior, a craving for validation, and a tendency to be overly romantic. The turning point came after the Phoenix incident when I made a significant shift in strategy. Instead of keeping them apart, I created opportunities for Alexis to see the true Eric, not the charming, attentive lover who made her feel special, but the manipulative, self-serving man that I had come to recognize. I decided to promote her to lead our new division, focusing on financial services, the same industry where Eric held the position of regional sales director. This meant she would now be interacting with his colleagues, clients, and entering his professional world. I presented this as a significant vote of confidence during the promotion meeting, telling her that she would be representing us with key players in the financial sector. Her face lit up with genuine pride as she thanked me for believing in her. She promised she wouldn't disappoint. Would you be available next week for dinner with some industry contacts? It's essential for them to meet the new face of our financial services division. Unbeknownst to her, these industry contacts include some of Eric's colleagues who have been aware of his indiscretions, but have kept quiet. They would immediately recognize Alexis. The dinner is set to take place at Melon's, the city's most exclusive restaurant. While we waited for our guests, I engaged Alexis in light conversation to build rapport. I've been positioning myself as a mentor figure in recent weeks, offering professional advice, showing interest in her ideas, and fostering a relationship based on respect and trust. After our second glass of wine, I asked if I could inquire about something personal. She seemed surprised but agreed, prompting me to ask if she was in a relationship. noting that she appeared distracted at times. Is there something complex happening in your personal life? Her cheeks tinted slightly, giving away the situation. I offered a sympathetic smile, signaling that I could relate. After a moment of hesitation, she lowered her voice. It's not straightforward. He's not exactly free. I nodded knowingly, suggesting he might be married. A look of alarm crossed her face. Don't worry, I reassured her, clarifying that I wasn't involved with a married man. Life is rarely just black and white, I added. Relief flooded her expression. He's unhappy and his marriage has been for years. His wife is consumed by her career and hardly notices him anymore, she explained. She paused, realizing the irony of her words coming from a career-oriented woman speaking to her boss, who was also. I smoothly cut in, assuring her that I didn't take offense and reminding her that each relationship is unique. I noted that men often paint a convenient picture of their wives when they're seeking someone else. Before she could respond, our dinner guest arrived, 3 senior executives from competing financial firms who all collaborated closely with Eric. Approaching our table, I observed their expressions and identified Alexis. The uneasiness between them, the warm greetings, and the careful avoidance of specific subjects during dinner were evident. Intentionally guiding the conversation towards topics such as office dynamics, company events, spouses, and families, I subtly mentioned my husband without using his name, noting the men's discomfort upon each mention. Alexis, astute as always, picked up on the strange reactions but couldn't quite pinpoint the cause. As the evening drew to a close, Thomas, Eric's manager, pulled me aside. Not only I have to ask, does Eric know you've hired his? His voice trailed off, clearly hesitant. Meeting his gaze firmly, I inquired, his what, Thomas? He hesitated before backing away, saying nothing, forget it. Insisting that he continue, he faltered, prompting me to respond calmly, but correct, it's not my place. Later, during the drive back to the office where Alexis had parked her car, she remained unusually quiet. Okay, she hesitated as she began to speak. I inquired with those gentlemen, and although they appear familiar with me, I have never crossed paths with them before. I maintain focus on the road ahead. The financial services industry is quite interconnected. It's possible they have seen you at industry functions, she suggested tentatively. Despite her uncertain tone, I felt the seed of doubt taking root, prompting me to seek further clarification. The upcoming phase involved attending Eric's company holiday party, a gathering where I usually played the role of the supported spouse engaging in mundane conversations with acquaintances who barely remembered me from one year to the next. The following week, I instructed Alexis to represent us at the Meridian Financial Holiday Gala. They are considering us for a marketing revamp, and this opportunity could help nurture our relationship with them. Meridian Financial, she echoed, her voice infused with a hint of surprise. Yes, is there an issue? I inquired. She quickly reassured me, denying any problem. However, I sensed her internal turmoil. Meridian was Eric's company, and she would be attending his holiday party, the same event where I would be present as his wife. This presented a potential collision of circumstances. On course, and she knew it. What she didn't know was that I had been methodically documenting everything for months. Every text between them, captured through the spyware my PI had installed. Financial records showing gifts Eric had purchased for her using our joint credit card. Hotel receipts. Photos of them together entering and exiting restaurants, hotels, his company parking garage. I had also been quietly meeting with divorce attorneys, securing my company assets, and preparing financially for what would come next. I'd moved significant portions of our joint savings into my protected business accounts, all perfectly legal given that they were legitimate business investments, but effectively placing them beyond Eric's reach in a divorce. The night before the holiday party, Eric was unusually attentive. He helped me choose my dress, a striking red gown that Eric, was unusually attentive. Instead would turn heads. He suggested I wear my hair up, exposing my neck in the way he'd always found attractive. I felt anxious, nervous about tomorrow night as I tried to make sure I looked my best for the inevitable encounter with his mistress. The tragic irony struck me as he was getting his wife ready to meet his lover, while I was preparing the lover to realize she wasn't the only one being deceived. While laying out my jewelry for the next evening, Eric received a text. I observed his face as he read it, detecting a fleeting expression of panic before he regained his composure. Everything okay? I asked innocently. Fine, he replied a bit too quickly. Just work stuff. Always something later. As he showered, I took a peek at his phone. The message was from Alexis. I have to attend your company party tomorrow night for work. What should we do? His response, don't worry, my wife will be in a different area of the room. We won't have much interaction. Just act professional if we run into each other. She won't suspect anything. Placing his phone back where it was, I resumed picking out my earrings for the upcoming event. The stage was set with all the players in position. Tomorrow was poised to bring about unexpected changes. That night, as I retired to bed, I was filled with a strange sense of calm. Instead of allowing my pain to dictate my actions, I had channeled it into meticulous planning. While others believed I was unaware, I had been covertly orchestrating a plan for their downfall, the same precision I used in building my business. It was time for them to realize how they had underestimated me. The Meridian Financial Holiday Gala took place at the Grand Hilton downtown, an opulent event designed to divert attention from the company's lackluster performance that year. As I entered on Eric's arm, exuding support in my elegant red dress and stylish updo, he seemed unusually nervous, his hand clammy in mine. You look stunning tonight, he repeated for the third time that evening. As I left home, I knew everyone would be envious that Eric was by my side. I smiled and gently touched his cheek, acknowledging his sweetness, but also recognizing that I was the fortunate one. His expression briefly showed discomfort, perhaps mixed with guilt or fear, or maybe even both. Let's grab a drink, he suggested, already leading the way to the bar. As I surveyed the room, my eyes quickly landed on Alexis. She stood near the entrance in a navy blue dress, clutching her purse tightly with white knuckles, her eyes darting anxiously around. Her demeanor changed subtly when she spotted Eric at the bar. A shift in posture, a lift in her chin, the body language of a woman recognizing her lover. However, as her gaze shifted to me standing beside him, her expression shifted to one of surprise. I pretended not to notice the shock in her widening eyes and slightly parted lips. She must have seen my photo before, whether on social media or in passing, but seeing me in person with Eric was evidently a different experience for her. I pretended not to notice her accepting my champagne from Eric with a warm smile that made her relax slightly. Poor Eric, thinking the worst was avoided because we hadn't been formally introduced yet. I should circulate, I told him. Introduce myself to some of the new executives. Of course, he agreed quickly, clearly relieved. I need to check in with Thomas about the Henderson account anyway. We separated, and I watched him immediately text something on his phone across the room. Alexis checked her device, then slipped out to the Terrace Classic. Instead of following them, instead of creating a scene, I approached Thomas and his wife, engaging them in conversation about their recent vacation to Bali. All the while, I monitored Eric's movements in my peripheral vision as he briefly joined Alexis on the terrace before returning inside, careful to maintain separation. Their little ballet of discretion continued for an hour, her networking with Meridian executives as my company reaper. The scene was set by him playing the charming employee, locking eyes with her across the room. It could have been impressive, if it weren't so pitiful. At 9:30 p.m. exactly, I politely excused myself from our conversation and made my way to the stage, where the CEO was getting ready to deliver his annual speech. This moment had been meticulously planned weeks in advance, with a favor called in from the CEO's wife, a former client who held a soft spot for me. Just as the formal remarks were about to begin, the CEO surprised everyone by announcing, before we proceed, I would like to invite Natalie Bennett to share a few words. The crowd murmured in surprise. This was not part of the scheduled program. Eric's expression turned stricken as I elegantly made my way up the stairs to the podium, the light catching my red dress in a dramatic fashion. I appreciate the warm welcome, I started, my voice unwavering. Bennett Consulting has played a crucial role in the success of several of our subsidiary companies this year. I have been with Meridian for many years and am excited to strengthen our relationship in the upcoming year. I spotted Eric and Alexis in the crowd and paused. Recently, I hired a talented new marketing strategist who I believe will transform how financial services firms like Meridian engage with their clients. Alexis Chen, could you come up on the stage with me, please? The room fell silent as Alexis hesitated, her glass of champagne on the verge of slipping from her hand. Eric looked visibly anxious, scanning between us. I offered my hand to Alexis, who composed herself and joined me on stage, her professional demeanor overshadowing any personal fear. She has been a remarkable addition to our team, I continued, praising her creativity and dedication, which have impressed both me and her colleagues. I turned to Alexis with a warm smile, inviting her to share her thoughts. A few words about the marketing innovations you envision for companies like Meridian. Trapped, she had no choice but to take the microphone. To her credit, She managed to deliver a brief, coherent statement about digital marketing strategies despite the visible tremors in her hands. When she finished, I reclaimed the microphone. Thank you, Alexis. I consider myself fortunate to work with such talented people. I paused meaningfully. Loyalty and honesty are values I prize above all others, both in business and in personal relationships. My eyes found Eric in the crowd. He was visibly sweating now. Speaking of personal relationships, I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge my husband, Eric Bennett. Eric, where are you, darling? Don't be shy. Reluctantly, he raised his hand. All eyes turned to him. After 15 years of marriage, I continued, I've learned that transparency is essential for success. Don't you agree, Eric? He nodded mechanically, clearly trying to process the announcement. I am thrilled with the knowledge I have gained and excited about my plans to utilize it. In the spirit of transparency, I have an important announcement to share. The room fell silent as I spoke. Eric appeared on the verge of fainting, and Alexis stood rigid next to me. I am pleased to reveal that Bennett Consulting will be establishing a new office in London next month, with Alexis appointed to lead this division effectively immediately. The audience responded with a mix of confusion and hesitant applause, as they realized this was not the anticipated public embarrassment. Alexis stared at Lee in disbelief. This is an incredible opportunity, I explained. It entails a minimum commitment of 3 years, a significant salary increase, and a comprehensive relocation package. The necessary paperwork is ready, and we can finalize the details tonight if you are ready, Alexis. With a smile that did not reach my eyes, I added, unless, of course, there is another reason for you to stay here. A moment of silent understanding passed between us as our eyes met. She comprehended that I was aware of everything, and she grasped that I was offering her a chance for a fresh start. She decided to start fresh thousands of miles away from the complicated situation she found herself in. I am grateful for this opportunity, she said nervously. Yes, I accept. The applause grew louder as I confidently shook her hand for the cameras. One more thing, I announced, turning to face the crowd. After careful consideration, I have chosen to end my personal partnership while strengthening my professional relationships. Eric's face fell as he realized what I meant. The necessary papers were delivered to our home today. I added calmly, I trust we can navigate this change with maturity. Please continue to enjoy the rest of the evening. As I walked down the steps, I was met with a mix of thunderous applause and shocked whispers. Thomas approached me, impressed but uneasy. That was quite a bold move, Naomi, he remarked. Indeed it was, I replied innocently. I believe in handling business and personal changes with efficiency. I noticed Eric heading towards the exit, his phone to his ear. As he reached for his ear, likely to call his attorney, a number of his colleagues instinctively moved away, already distancing themselves from the impending consequences. Meanwhile, Alexis stood on stage, still coming to terms with the recent events. When our gazes met once more, I silently nodded at her, not a gesture of forgiveness, as I hadn't reached that point yet, but rather an acknowledgement of the shared manipulation we had both endured at the hands of the same man. As I prepared to depart, Alexis approached me tentatively. I didn't know, she began quietly, about you, about who you truly were. He painted a picture of his wife as cold, distant, career-focused, and emotionally unavailable, I finished for her. Yes, I've seen the messages. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. The job offer in London is genuine, I stated matter-of-factly. The decision is yours, but I'd advise you to carefully consider a man who can lie so effortlessly to both his wife and his mistress. I never intended to cause harm, she murmured. And yet, harm was done, I responded simply. As I turned to walk away, she called out to me, why did you just fire me when you found out? I paused, pondering her question. Because I began thoughtfully. I chose to respond proactively rather than reactively. Sometimes the most effective consequences are not the most obvious ones. I left her standing there, ignoring the whispers and stares of Eric's colleagues as I walked out into the cool night air alone. It was the first time in months that I allowed myself to truly acknowledge the weight of what had transpired. Not just Eric's betrayal, but also the profound transformation I had undergone. I had poured everything into our marriage, only to have it disregarded. However, by reacting calculated, strategically, and with control, I was able to reclaim my power, dignity, and future on my own terms. A text from Eric interrupted my thoughts. How long have you known? I chose not to respond. But questions do not merit answers. 6 months later, I found myself in my London office, looking out over the Thames while discussing quarterly projections with my UK team. To my surprise, Alexis had accepted the position, a decision that initially caught me off guard but eventually made sense. She had proven to be, fleeing her past mistakes, establishing her credibility in the professional sphere, and creating distance from Eric. I respected her decision, though not necessarily her as a person. Our professional relationship remained detached. I refrained from mentioning Eric, and she never felt the need to offer any apologies or explanations again. Our unspoken understanding led to an unusual yet effective dynamic. Two women moving ahead independently from the man who had betrayed them both. The divorce was finalized promptly and surprisingly smoothly. Eric, eager to avoid further public humiliation, agreed to my terms without much pushback. His reputation at Meridian had taken a severe hit, not due to the affair itself, but because of how adeptly his wife had outwitted him. While men in finance can overlook many transgressions, displaying vulnerability is not forgiven easily. I received sporadic updates about him from common contacts. He had shifted to a smaller firm, sold our shared property at a loss, and had started a new relationship. A young woman from his gym reflected on the unchanging patterns around her. Meanwhile, she had successfully expanded Bennett Consulting to include 3 new international locations, doubled the client roster, and acquired a chic apartment with a view of Central Park for her visits to the New York office. Her life had been redefined entirely on her own terms. Despite the lingering pain of past betrayals, time had softened the scars but not erased them completely. There were still moments when memories from her marriage haunted her sleep, as she searched for clues she might have missed. However, these moments no longer dictated her identity. They were merely a part of her story that had shaped her resilience. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, an unexpected email arrived from Alexis. The London office was thriving under her leadership, surpassing projections for the 3rd consecutive quarter. Closing her detailed report, Alexis added a personal note. I know we may never address the past, but I want you to know, I've not only gained professional insights from the experience, but also personal growth. While you had the power to harm me, you chose a different course of action. The lesson you taught me will not be forgotten. I decided to leave the email unanswered, as some acknowledgments don't necessitate a response. Later that evening, I found myself at a finance industry dinner in London, where I met a distinguished man named Alexander Harrington from Blackwell Partners. As he approached me, he remarked that he had heard about my adept handling of complex situations. When I replied that I see challenges as opportunities, he noted that the same principles applied to both business and personal matters. I added that my approach involves assessing situations objectively and responding strategically rather than emotionally. Engaging in the long game is always E's strategy, he chuckled appreciatively. I would be interested in learning more about your philosophy. Perhaps we could discuss it over dinner sometime. 6 months earlier, I would have immediately declined, still reeling from the hurt of betrayal and not ready to contemplate the future. However, in that moment, I realized a crucial point. I was no longer the same person who had uncovered those deceitful actions with the credit card charges and text messages. The old me had been blindsided by betrayal, while the new me had confronted that treachery and emerged empowered, more knowledgeable, and in firm control of my own destiny. I would like that, I responded simply. Later that evening, with the sound of rain tapping against my window, I reflected on the unconventional journey that had brought me to this point. I had employed my husband's mistress without her recognizing my identity, a choice fueled by anguish and fury, yet implemented with strategic calculation and self-restraint under the guise of it wasn't about revenge. In truth, it wasn't about seeking revenge. It was about reclaiming ownership of a storyline that had been taken from me. While some might label it as vindictive, I saw it as was reconstruction required? I did not regret any of it. Not the months spent planning in silence, not the strategic confrontation, not even the pain that kickstarted it all. Because without that trigger, I might have remained in a marriage founded on deceit and false comfort indefinitely. Instead, I discovered something more precious than revenge. I discovered myself. Accepting Alexander's dinner invitation signified the start of a new chapter for me. Eric and Alexis had unknowingly granted me a gift, the freedom to reconstruct my life completely on my own terms. The ultimate revenge wasn't breaking them down, it was flourishing without them.